Welcome one, welcome all to Max's Mic. I'm Max and I have the mic. And today's episode is all about week 18 of the NFL season. We're going to be breaking down two segments. Opening one's going to be solely fantasy focused. Second segment, we're going to go through every single game that is taking place this week, the two games coming up later today, and then the rest of the games going on tomorrow. There's going to be a few more fantasy comments in that second section, as well as a few comments towards the betting aspect. Spreads, going to talk about that in every single game, as well as maybe some combined point totals and some other fantasy comments. So, that being said, let's get right into it with the first segment, opening up with some comments about fantasy football. As many of you are still competing like me in your championship, there's one more week of the season, and we'll start with comments about James Conner. A big running back this season. James Conner has done very well for a lot of fantasy managers. However, he will be out this week. So in trying to figure out, not just as a James Conner fantasy manager, but a fantasy manager looking for a running back that could step up and fill a hole if you have other guys like even Kyren Williams or James Cook, who are really not going to get much of any playing time. James Cook might get a few snaps. Kyren Williams has already been ruled out for this game simply due to rest. I would go with Michael Carter, who will be the lead back in Arizona for tomorrow's game. Carter had 13 carries last week for 70 yards and 2 receptions and 2 targets for 11 yards after James Conner had come out of that game. Also, a squad to look at is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And a lot of their players, I believe, will be or should be in play and starts this week. We're going to start with the defense with Kamara out, Kendre Miller out. Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be the starting running back, and I don't really think, unless you really need it, or if you're in one of those bigger 12 or 16-team leagues, you might be able to get away with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Spencer Rattler will be in at quarterback. I do not trust either CEH or Rattler to be a real start if you're in a 10 or an 8-man league and you have the ability to go with someone else. Olave, I believe, is still questionable with a concussion injury. And if he should play, start him. If not, I would steer clear. And I definitely believe that this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is in play with all of that said. Also in play, Buck starters on offense, Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Bucky Irving. Might be able to play Rachaad White, especially again, because this running back availability is very thin this week. Also, going to be starting this week, Jalen McMillan. I also believe that you should start Jalen McMillan, one of the 3 Washington receivers drafted in this past year's draft. Jalen Polk, Rome Odunze, the other 2. McMillan has really stepped up, especially these last 3 weeks, last 4 weeks, a touchdown in every single game in the last 4 weeks, 6 total touchdowns in the last 4 weeks. He's put up a phenomenal games the last 4 weeks. He is red hot. Look to him to continue to get a lot of targets, especially with Godwin still injured, unfortunately. Another guy, I know that the running back market is thin, but if you can find a way to avoid him, I would be cautious of Devon Achane this week. Cautious. Achane has put up phenomenal numbers and has been a stellar running back, but only when Tua Tagovailoa is in the lineup. Tua has been out and missed 5 weeks this season. When Tua is not in the lineup, Achane scored a total of 33.7 points. That is 6.7 per game. 33 points across 5 weeks that Tua didn't play. This includes the 5.8, I believe it is, last week that he put up. Understanding that they are still in a win-and-in situation in which they need to win to give themselves a chance to make it to the playoffs. I believe they're not winning in. They're a win and a Broncos loss, and they're in. But they still need to win to get in. So Achane's definitely going to be in and playing, just like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're a win and in situation, so they're going to be playing all their starters. But I just don't know how well Achane's going to do. could be a 14 to 15 point week. So if you just need someone to put up a couple points like me, I just need someone to put up a 15-point week to help me secure a win in the championships. I'm going to be starting HN, but if you need someone that's got a higher chance of booming, if you're someone who is down, I don't think HN's going to have a really high upside this week and have the potential to score a lot of points this week. Moving on, we've got T. Higgins, who, as of right now, it is still not confirmed whether or not he is playing, but I believe it is very likely he will be playing this week. If he is a must start this week, a must start. It was the same story or very similar story last week in which Higgins was questionable the entirety of the week, but then when it came to game time, he was in, and what did he do? He put up 40 points. Granted, quite a few of those points, I believe about 15-ish, were put up in that overtime, including the touchdown that he scored. However, that still means that he dropped 25-ish points in regulation. That is a phenomenal week from a wide receiver, especially one of T. Higgins, who is technically the number 2 receiver in that receiving corps behind Jamar Chase. So, T. Higgins, if he is in, he's a must start, but that is going to still come down to game time, which is at 8 tonight. So there's still some time with that. I believe it is at 8 o'clock on the dot. I was right. Awesome. Finally, the last guy I'm going to talk about in this segment, or the last real team we're going to talk about in this segment before we move on, is Bo Nix. I'm going to especially sing on Bo Nix as a massive start, and maybe look into some of the other players on that offense, that Broncos offense, as the Chiefs are going to be without a lot of their starters this week. The Chiefs locked into the 1 seed. They have nothing to play for. We already know that Mahomes is out. I believe that Kelsey will be sitting. I believe that, especially on the offensive side, Pacheco and Kareem Hunt will also be out. I have not seen official reports on the defensive side of who's not going to be in. However, I do know that there is a high chance a lot of those top end starter defensive players will not be in this week for the Chiefs, as, again, this game does not matter. Win or lose, they're still the 1 seed in the AFC. So definitely start Bo Nix, especially because the Broncos are in a situation if which they win, they are in, no matter what happens with everyone else. So they will be looking to secure that win. Now let's go and move on to the second segment of this week. I'm going to go into a little more detail on each specific matchup, talk about a few more players and fantasy comments, talk about a little betting, because that is just a big part of sports. Can't avoid it at this point. It is a massive aspect, and I know that there are some listeners out there who do that sort of thing, who enjoy the betting aspect. So going to give my 2 cents on that as well. And we're going to get started with the Saturday games, starting with Browns at Ravens. Browns at Ravens. The Ravens, pretty sure, are locked into the 3 seed. However, it seems that some of the starters are going to get some reps in this one. The Browns are going to be going with Bailey Zappi this week as their starter, so be a little cautious with some of the Browns receivers. However, I do believe that Jerry Jeudy could be a possible start this week. Jeudy, who a lot of people thought last week with DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, starting last week, a lot of people didn't think they should start Jerry Jeudy. Well, then he went out and dropped 21 points. I don't think he's going to put up that many, but again, with lineups so thin and a lot of starters out this week, I believe that Jerry Jeudy could be a plug-in player to score a decent amount of points. He's going to get a lot of targets, and this Ravens secondary has struggled a bit this season, quite a bit this season, and especially if this game starts to kind of move into that blowout territory, we could see a lot of the starters start coming out, which leaves an opportunity for a guy like Jerry Jeudy to find holes in that already. The starters prove to be weak in the secondary. The backups are going to be quite worse, and there is some potential. Now, the spread on this one is 20 points in favor of the Ravens. it's really going to come down to if and when the starters come out. I think that should the starters be playing in full force, I think the Ravens definitely cover that 20-point spread. However, I believe that this being week 18 and at this point, I don't think that stat padding is really going to be worth it. I think, especially in the MVP race, I think Josh Allen has secured that already. So Lamar, I don't think there's much of a reason for you to really think that you've got a stat pad in this game to try to catch up to Allen. I think Josh Allen secured the MVP. So I think that there is potential for a lot of these starters to come out. And should they come out, especially around halftime, early in the third quarter, we could see the Browns put up a few points and close down on that 20-point deficit or whatever it is at the time. I also think that the Ravens might not be going full force. They might not be playing at 100% effort, in the sense that they're not going to be really pushing and fighting fully to get all the way to the end zone and put up a ton of points in this game. They're going to be taking their time. Again, because win or lose, it's not going to change their seeding. So we could see the Browns not lose by 20 or more points and the spread not be covered. Moving on to the other game that is in the 8 o'clock slot, Bengals at Steelers. And this game is big. This game has playoff implications. Should the Bengals win and both the Dolphins and Broncos lose, the Bengals are in to the playoffs. The Steelers, on the other hand, are also going to be fighting for a playoff seed as they look to try and clinch the 5 seed ahead of the Chargers. Chargers and Steelers are currently knotted up, but the Steelers do have the edge. So they're both at 10 wins. The Steelers do have the tiebreaker. So should the Steelers win this game, they're locked into the 5. And why is that important? Well, the 5 seed gets to play the Houston Texans. The 6 seed has to play the Ravens. I would so much rather go to Houston and play this Texans team that is looking quite iffy than go and have to take on Lamar and Derrick Henry. Now, I do think that the Steelers have a better shot of beating them than the Chargers do. I think Tomlin's still got Lamar's number and can still find a way to easily shut him down. They did the first matchup. They couldn't really stop him the second time around. It would be awesome to see what happens the third time around. So I really want the Bengals to win, because also great story for the Bengals. And I do think the Bengals will win. Chase Brown's potentially going to play in this one. However, still awaiting confirmation. Nonetheless, I do think the Bengals will win, as while the Steelers' defense is good, T. Higgins being in with Jamar Chase, a just lethal combo that is really hard to handle. 2.5 points. The Bengals are favored in the spread. I do think they will cover that one. Now we're going to move on to Sunday's game, starting with Giants at Eagles. And, well, this one is sure to be interesting, as the Eagles will be without a lot of their starters. Jalen Hurts is still injured and out with a concussion. Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith, to name a few on the offense, will be sitting out of this one. The Eagles will be going with Tanner McKee at the quarterback, and Kenneth Gainwell will be their lead running back. With a lot of these starters out, I still think that somehow the Eagles pull off this win, as this Giants team has looked abysmal. Now, granted, they did win last week. I think that's a fluke, and the Colts team just didn't show up. I think the Eagles cover that 2.5 point spread, but I believe that this will be a low scoring game, in that the combined 37.5 points will not hit. Go for the under, not the over, in combined points for this game. Moving on, Texans at Titans, moving swiftly through these games. Texans at Titans, and the Titans are favored by 1.5 points, and that's simply because a lot of the Texans players are going to be sitting out of this one or playing in very limited capacities, whereas the Titans, who are already eliminated, all those players are going to be playing at full force, as they are still fighting for their future in the NFL and wanting to prove that they can still handle it. So that's why the Titans are favored by 1.5, but I think they will cover it pretty easily. Moving on, Panthers at Falcons in Atlanta. Still with a chance to make the playoffs. However, they're going to need a win and a Bucs loss, which I don't think will happen. However, these two teams will be playing in the same time slot at 1 p.m. on Sunday. So they really won't know what's going to happen during, well, they can follow it kind of during the game, but you really can't. So they're going to be playing in full force. And while the Panthers have suddenly come out of nowhere, Bryce Young looking a lot better, I believe the Falcons are the better team. No Chuba Hubbard for the Panthers this week, so it'll be interesting to see who the running backs or the lead running back will be, if there even is a lead running back. For the Falcons side of things, Bijan Robinson has looked phenomenal this season, has really stepped up in a greater capacity and received a lot more snaps and a lot more usage and better usage. He's been used in better ways than he was last year. However, that cannot really be said about a lot of the other players, especially Kirk Cousins, who did not play nearly as well as many had anticipated he would in this Falcons offense that consists of Kyle Pitts, who didn't receive the amount of production that a lot of people expected, Drake London, and Darnell Moneyman Mooney. Great weapons in this Falcons offense. However, it did not seem that Kirk Cousins was able to get the fullest use out of all of them. On the other hand, his replacement, the guy taken early in the first round, Michael Penix Jr., has looked a lot better than I and many others expected him to play. One, not many expected him to get much of any playing time this season, and in the little playing time he has, he's looked quite strong. That being said, he's also faced the Giants and Commanders, two offenses that, defenses that are not that good. The Giants defense, with some names like Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence, did not play well this season, and the Commanders are another team without a really strong defense. So while Penix has looked great, he hasn't really faced a top 10 defense in the league yet. So it'll be interesting to see how he does against that. However, in this matchup, he's going up against the Panthers defense that also, too, is kind of in the conversation of level as the Giants and Commanders. So look to Penix to have a great game in this one. Moving through, we've got Saints at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I feel like I've already talked about this enough in the fantasy segment. Buccaneers are going to beat the Saints. The Saints are battered and bruised and run through like a train, just bulldoze their locker room in the form of the injury bug. Really unfortunate, as they were at quite a high at the start of the season, and while I did not think that that level of play would have continued had everyone been healthy, it is still quite unfortunate to see how this team has fallen, especially due to injuries. The Bucs are going to win this game and cover the 14-point spread. Moving on, Bills at Patriots. An interesting matchup. This one will be. Josh Allen is slated to start. However, do not, and I repeat, do not start him in your fantasy leagues. Why, you may ask? Well, he's starting, and that is simply to give him the opportunity to keep his starting streak alive. Consecutive games started, just looking to keep that going. He's going to come in, play a few snaps, probably not finish the first quarter. Then he's going to come out. I think Trubisky is going to be then coming in and be the real quarterback. James Cook is also slated still to start, but I do not believe that he's, again, going to play a lot of snaps. Ray Davis will be playing in this one and will probably be the lead running back in this game. Amari Cooper also will not be playing in this one. I believe it is personal reasons they've released why he's not playing. On the other side, for the Patriots, Drake May still questionable with, I believe it is a right hand injury. I think he still will play this week. And should he play, I think he will do quite well, as a lot of the Bills backups will be in. The Bills are locked into the 2 seed in the playoffs, so quite a few Bills backups will be in. But when we look over to the point spread, I believe that the Bills will cover and win this game. Bills will cover the 3-point spread. They're the 3-point favorite and will win this game as this Patriots defense really has not played well. And I understand that it was quite a close matchup the last time these two teams faced off when all the Bills starters were in. I think this one is going to be I think this one will be similar to that with a slightly different twist to the story as the backups for the Bills will be in. But I still think the Bills win and cover that 3-point spread. Moving on, Jaguars at Colts. And the Colts are coming off of an incredibly embarrassing loss to the New York Giants, as I'd already brought up. A Colts team that many considered would be in the conversation for a possible playoff team or a fringe playoff team blew their chances to make the playoffs after losing to the Giants 45-33. And in that loss, the Giants earned the same amount of wins as both the Devils and the Rangers had in MetLife Stadium in the 2024 calendar year. So, a really, really embarrassing loss for the Colts. Now, coming off of that loss, it's going to be interesting to see how they respond and how they play in this game, as I expect them to show up with some fire under them, fire in their hearts and in their eyes, seeing red, and really walk through the Jaguars, and a Jaguars team who, are looking to lose this one. I don't think they're going to really throw it away, but many in the Jaguars fandom and possibly even within the office staff and the staff and crew of that Jaguars team are hoping they lose so that they can keep a top draft pick, either look for a really high-end player or possibly a quarterback. Don't think they will take one, but the opportunity could be there, as a loss here would give them quite a high draft pick, or they could trade it away and get a lot out of that. Next game, Commanders at Cowboys. Cowboys have played horribly this season, as just like the Saints, injuries have run rampant through them. On the other hand, the Commanders, and especially Jaden Daniels, have played a lot better than many expected. And while I did believe this Commanders offense would look quite well, I thought the defense were definitely going to handicap them and stall their success. That is not the case, as they are in the playoffs, and now they're going to be fighting with the Packers for the sixth seed. However, although that being the sixth seed, it is still an important seed, as the winner could potentially end up playing. Will play the two. The winner will play the 3 seed. The loser will get the 2 seed. So the winner Commanders, should they win and the Packers lose, will get the 6 seed. Whoever has the 6 seed plays the 2. Well, who's the 2 seed? That will be the Philadelphia Eagles. On the other hand, the loser, the 7, will play the 3. That could either be the Rams or the NFC South team. Whoever that may end up being. Sorry, I made that really complicated to follow, so I'm going to go through it again. The winner, not the winner. Should the Commanders win this game and the Packers lose, they will move into the 6th seed. The 6th seed will play the 3 in the playoffs. The 7th seed will get the 2 seed. The 2 seed is locked in to be the Philadelphia Eagles. Really good team, really fierce, going to be a hard matchup. The 3 seed most likely will be the Los Angeles Rams. I think there is potential to be an NFC South team, either the Buccaneers or the Falcons, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be the Rams. The Rams are a lot easier to beat than it will be to beat the Eagles. That is why the Commanders will be looking to win this game. On the other side, you've got the Packers, who will also be looking to win as they don't want to play the Eagles. But the Packers will also be looking to win as they don't want to lose to the Bears. Heated rivalry between these two teams, and not one does not want to lose to the other. So I think the Commanders will win and cover the 6.5-point spread, and I think the Packers will win and cover their spread, which would end up with the Packers staying at the 7th seed, even though they were to win, because the Commanders won and they'll get the 6th seed. So the Commanders would end up playing the Rams and the Packers would end up playing the Eagles. Moving on, Seahawks at Rams. And the Seahawks favored 6.5 points in this one because a lot of the Rams players, especially on offense, will be out. The notable offensive players out this game: Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, and Kyren Williams will all not be playing this week. So the Seahawks favor 6.5. They will cover and they will win this one with a lot of the Rams starters out. Next, Dolphins at Jets. And we already talked about Tua Tagovailoa will be out of this game, which means that the starting quarterback in this one is Tyler Huntley, who's played pretty solid. Again, be cautious of Devon Achane. For the fantasy managers, however, I think he will still have a solid game this week. And I think that the Dolphins, with a lot more to play for than the Jets, will pull out the win. Dolphins are favored by just 1 point, so I think they win. I think they cover the spread. You got to win by at least a point. There's no way to score half the points in this game. So Dolphins win and cover the spread in this one. The Jets, they lose another game, and it's just been an abysmal season. And the Jets fans are just at this point, they just want to get to the offseason, and they want to move on, and they want to hope and pray that this team makes some major changes, as major changes are needed. Broncos at Chiefs, another game we've kind of already talked about, and the Broncos are favored 10.5 in this one, just simply because the Chiefs are going to be having their backups in, and the Broncos are still playing to make the playoffs. I think they win. They cover the Broncos is who I think will win, cover the 10.5-point spread. Now, we move into an interesting game for the bettors. Chargers at Raiders. And I say this is interesting because, as I mentioned earlier, the Steelers have the tiebreaker between the Chargers and, the Steelers. So, should the Steelers win tonight, they would be locked in to the higher seed, which would mean that no matter what happens between the Chargers and the Raiders, the Chargers' seeding would not change. And they would be down in the 7th seed. So, I believe, yes, they would be down in the 7th seed because they have the tiebreaker over the Broncos. So while I do think the Chargers are going to end up playing and try to win this one, just because they don't want to lose to a division rival, we could see some of the starters coming out of the game quite early, in the middle of the game maybe. If it's really a blowout and that bad, could see them come out in the second quarter, could see them come out in the third or the fourth. So fantasy managers, be a little cautious, but I do think that the Stars will play quite a bit of this game. The Chargers are favored by 4 points. I think they'll win this game and cover that 4-point spread. Niners at Cardinals. Brock Purdy is injured and will be out of this game, so Josh Dobbs is in. Also out and injured for the Niners is Deebo Samuel. So Isaac Orendo, the lead running back, and Jawan Jennings, the number 1 wide receiver, we already talked about for the Cardinals. James Conner's out, so Michael Carter is in. Cardinals are favored 4.5 points. And I think that they will win and cover the spread, and we'll see another Trey McBride touchdown as this Cardinals team seems to be rolling, and this 49ers team seems to be slowly limping their way to the end of this season. A lot of injuries to this team. Jordan Mason, CMC have been banged up, and Joey Nick Bosa has been hurt. A lot of other defenders and players have been hurt, come back, been hurt, come back. It's been a rough season for the Niners. They're just looking to get as many players as they can healthy to the end of the season, regroup, reset, and look forward to the 2025-26 season. So Cardinals are going to win this one, cover that spread. And finally, we get to the best game of the week. Could be the best game of the year. Vikings at Lions. Winner of this game wins the NFC North and earns themselves the 1 seed. Loser will be a 14-win, that's right, 14-win 5 seed. The loser of this game will have either tied for the second most possibly or the third most wins in the entire league and be the 5th seed. The loser of this game will either be tied for most wins in the NFC, or have the second most wins in the NFC and still be the 5 seed. They'll either be tied for second or be in second for most wins in the NFC, but yet they're somehow the 5 seed. That's just how the cookie crumbles because they will not have won their division. The Vikings have been playing very well this season with Sam Darnold as their quarterback, a man who many thought might take a few starts at the start of the season before then handing things off to J.J. McCarthy. Well, J.J. McCarthy got hurt before the season even started, and Sam Darnold was put in a position in which he was the guy, and there was no one else really challenging him for that position, and he made the most of this opportunity, leading this Vikings team to a 14-win at a minimum season. Also for the Vikings, Brian Flores, their defensive coordinator, and this blitz-heavy Vikings defense have played phenomenally, especially for a lot of fantasy managers like me, who typically I'm a guy who loves to run the waiver wire, especially with my defense, picking a new defense every week. I picked up the Vikings quite early this season and have just set it and forget it, and it has worked very well for me. So the Vikings defense have played very well this season. However, they've got to take on a really, really red-hot and dominant Lions offense who have just gone and said, okay, we see you, injury bug. We see you coming and running a rampage. We're still going to find a way. We're still going to find a way through the grit and the determination of this team, Lions team, with the backing of our city of Detroit, representing who they are and the people that make up the city of Detroit. We are going to represent you, and we are going to fight no matter what challenges face us. And while the offense has been relatively healthy, the defense has seen significant players such as Aiden Hutchinson fall to that injury bug. Nonetheless, they have found a way to win 14 games and be in a position to win the NFC. And I believe that they will win this game, cover the 2.5-point spread, and win the NFC. This team has looked really strong, really good this year. I've even jokingly joined a random fantasy league and drafted only Lions players, and I'm in position right now to win that league. Crazy. That's how good this Lions team has played offensively and defensively. They've found a way that is exactly their mentality that they entered the season with, and they've run with it ever since, and it is working to perfection and giving them the opportunity to possibly go on a deep playoff run and win a Super Bowl. So those are my thoughts in a really convoluted and chaotic way of breaking down what I think is going to happen and some keys to pay attention to. And I hope you've all enjoyed this video and enjoyed my content for the NFL season. Coming up in a look ahead, still going to be more on the Instagram. Max's Mike on Instagram will be the location for my pick'ems for the college football playoffs as well as the NFL playoffs. Coming up on this channel, going to be my breakdowns for the MLB offseason, a special video dedicated to both the Mets and the Yankees, either combined into one or separate. We'll see if these teams make some more moves and there will be enough content to make separate videos or one. Time will tell. Also coming up on this channel, some hockey breakdowns as This is a channel devoted to all of sports and not just one sport in particular. Hope you have all enjoyed. Have a great weekend and hope your starts to 2025 are amazing. Take care, everybody. Have a great night.